Yeah. Hi, good evening. Welcome to another session of mock interviews with Ankit Jain. So this is me, Ankit Jain. So I'm a technical architect in an MNC. I'm 20x certified. I'm mentor at Topmate. I'm also a community speaker. I spoke for various community groups like Gorakhpur Developer Group, Gurugram Marketing Cloud Group, and also I have an upcoming session with Kanyakumari Developer Group as well. So I have a YouTube channel by the name Mock Interviews with Ankit Jain. So this is the YouTube link, and then this is my LinkedIn. So you can scan this if you want to connect with me. So I share any good technical content or any job opportunities which I found relevant. So I share it on my LinkedIn. So you can feel free to connect with me. And this is my YouTube channel. So here there are various videos recorded. Like there's a quick interview playlist. There's a architect specific playlist as well. There's some technical sessions related playlist as well. There's some proper mock interviews as well, which we have recorded in the past. So which could be helpful for you. Again, it's free. And this is a WhatsApp group, like we have created a community of all the professionals who are looking for a job or are relevant to Salesforce. So this is also free. And there's more than 1400 people are in that group. So you can feel free to connect with on this. And then today we'll be discussing around MNC question answers. So from various sources, like there are some question answers which we have figured out from multiple different companies. So we'll be discussing on those today. So we'll get started on this. So feel free to interrupt me wherever you need more clarification or more detail. Okay. So, first question is around like how do LWC components communicate with each other? See, answer is very simple. If you will have to, sometimes it might happen like you would need to tell them like what whether it is parent to child, child to parent, or how it's the relation. You might have to cross question them as well, or then other option is like you explain for each of it. So you start with your parent to child like via @ API, common one, child to parent custom events. This is sibling to sibling. This I have additionally added, like apart from what Salesforce has done, because you might think there's a possibility like you might think like these are siblings, so there should be communication should be possible. But unfortunately, directly it's not possible. So you will either have to go with PubSub, LMS, or you have to use do event propagation and all of it. It kinds of behave like unrelated components only. So you'll have to go with that route only. Okay. So I'm going forward with this. Now this is another round promises, like what are promises, promise.race. See, promise is like how we say the proper word of English promise. Like there is a promise that I make, like whether that it's for asynchronous, like when it would happen, I don't know. I promise to you that I will return you the money that I owe you. So it can happen immediately, it can happen in the future, and there's a possibility that I might never return your money. So the same goes with the JavaScript promises as well. So here there are some methods, promise.all and promise.race. Promise.all is like it whenever there are multiple promises, like here, like get accounts, get contacts, get opportunities, all are asynchronous operations. So when all of them are done, then only I would want like users should be able to see the table or wherever I want him to show the data. He or means they should be able to see the data. So everything is done. It shouldn't happen like first accounts are coming, then again contacts are coming in. It shouldn't happen. Like once everything is done, then I'm able to see it proper. So in the such kind of scenario, we go with promise.all. Another is promise.race. Promise.race is like a running race. Like if one person is the winner, then it doesn't matter like whether the other person is able to finish the race or not. It is as soon as like one is completed, it ends. So here as well, like where in out of the multiple promises that are there, and if suppose either one of them is completed, then the promise it's like it gets resolved or rejected. So Both. This is actually a very important JavaScript question, means LWC question, which is asked in the interviews. So I thought like let's cover it up as well. And you might think like these are all theoretical concepts. Where do I really use it? See, there are some scenarios like where if you have multiple sources of data, and then suppose you want like suppose I do a API call. Like suppose one geocoding service I have of Google as well, and suppose I have it for other companies like MapMy India as well. So if I made both the licenses, so I thought like whoever responds the first, I can use its data and show the response. So in this scenario, I can use Promise.race. Like as soon as one response I get, I can use that data and I shouldn't wait like whether they're from other source I'm getting or not. It is where like your response time is more critical than the accuracy. So this is a good one example of that. What I'm saying is making sense. You can please respond in the chat, reply on the chat, or you can acknowledge it verbally as well. Okay? Can someone acknowledge like whatever I'm saying is making some sense? Or am I going too much fast? I'm going fast.
It's fine, Ankit, for me.
Okay. 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 Promise.race. Like any question around this? Or was it by mistake? Or at the later part as well, you can address like if something is left out and you're not able to speak now. Now, next is around decorators. See, decorators is very simple one. You might say like why there's a need, like this is very much common. See, the important catch in decorators is like explaining it in granular detail. You might say like three decorators are there. What is a big deal? Like API, wire, and track. What is the big thing around that? The catch is here how you explain it. Like suppose when you're talking about like at that API, you can say like yes, it's like exposes the property or a method. Then you can also tell them to means elaborate on that. Like whether you would want to expose it as a property. Like this is a very simple use case. Like you have that message as a parameter. So here you would want to pass that message here directly as a specific attribute, and other is like your method. So from your child you want to from your parent you would want to get the call the child method. So for that scenario as well you can use this. Like here on the child we have made this method as at that API, so you can call this as well. So this is the example of at that API. Okay. Now the this is also quite simple. Next is around track. Track, you might everybody would say echo it like it's making it reactive and all of it, and that's it. But no, you have to go into more details. Like, see, earlier the need of at the rate track was to make the property reactive, and because otherwise, means in previous times, like the property primitive data types were not reactive. But later, Salesforce made a decision like all the primitive data types, they would make it as reactive by default. So now the use case is only limited to your arrays and objects or your custom data type. Other than that, you can directly use the variable. It's reactive only by default. Okay. Next is your at the rate wire. Wire is like very simple, like for fetching the data. Now, there might be multiple questions coming up. So, like, when do I use wire? Like, I have to fetch the data, and other thing is like, I should automatically, I should not like whenever the data changes, I should not call the method explicitly. Automatically, the data should be refreshed. So if such kind of scenario I want to handle, then I can go with at the rate wire. Another counter question of that comes in like, what is the difference between at the rate wire and imperative calling? See, at the rate wire, it is data is cached. Okay. So that, and you, because of which like you cannot do any DML. So you can only fetch the data. and it will follow its own order of execution like it was defined. But implicit calling, whenever you do it, like suppose on a button click you want to call the method or do any DML, then you go with that. So that is the core advantage of your means core difference between @fire and imperative calling. How many times the wire get called? It actually gets called multiple times. Initially, when it gets called, like that time the parameters are null. Then again, like when the data is refreshed, again it gets called. So there are two times actually. Someone has actually done a debug on a blog and mentioned that. So looking at that, it has mentioned like twice it's getting called, and the response comes in after the connected callback. So after the connected callback, when the @fire gets called, at that time you will get the actual data. Okay. Now there's a slight deviation of the topic, like it's around last n months, like last n months SOQL. Like see, sometimes what the trend has been in the company's interview is like they test your triggers and everything, but few companies are actually drilling down on the SQL as well. Few major big MNCs have actually asked this question, and the main catch is like everybody knows the syntax, like last 10 months, like how we need to write, but very few people know like what exactly records it would return. Like this explanation part is actually a very catchy. It would actually take it from here. Like suppose it is like July 19th, then it would go back to like here we have mentioned as 6. So if exact 6 months. So it's like Jan. So Jan 19th till 19th July, it would return all that data. Okay. I'm moving forward. The next question is around how you do debugging. This is actually a question is specific mostly for your senior developers and architect kind of a role. So we all know console logs, everybody has done that. Next is debugger. Debugger is actually standard functionality. And the catch of debugger is like when the code executes and if your dev console is not open, then it would execute it normally. But suppose if you have opened the dev console, then at that juncture, the code will take a break, pause, and then you can check the variables, whatever value you have, and that way it is much more better instead of alert statements. Third is your network tab. I always rely on this. Like you are able to see which method is getting called in your network tab, what parameters have gone, and what response it has returned. And in the log, next one is around your web security console warnings. So that is also helpful, like in your console, if you would be able to see something in red. So that whatever is in red, you can go through that. And at the last, like you can go with your server-side logging. Like you create a debug log and then you go through that, set up the different debug log levels and go ahead with that. Okay.
Ankit, is there a video of you where you are explaining all these debugging in real time? I mean, the practical hands-on.
Not as of now, but I can actually create this one. But it will be a very short session. So let me see, like if it can be done. But I
Okay,
can
because
plan it.
I had taken a Udemy course for LWC. Okay, so there when the guy was explaining, so in the console logs it was showing which component is basically being used. But when I am doing it at my screen, I am only getting the basic generic name. Like I don't remember, it was something Java or JavaScript.j, something like this. So I was not getting component name in the console logs. So it was a bit difficult for me to debug what is causing the error.
Okay, got it. Like, see, there are two parts in that.
Mhm.
See, if it might two scenarios can happen. Like in your network tab, like you can press Control plus P and that would open the exact JS file and then you can apply your breakpoint. Or
Okay.
second is like your console log inside that also you can get that.
But
So,
how to get, sorry to cut you short. So how to get that specific component? So there are multiple components on the screen right now, and one of the component is throwing an error. So how would I come to know which component is giving the error? Because it says generic name javascript.js, that's it. Dot some line.
but you would know the this thing, no? Like which method is getting called. So first step would be you know that page, right?
Hmm.
On that page, like you know which component is placed on that, correct?
Yes, but there could be multiple components also
So
if there
for
is unknown
the on the
application.
page, if there are multiple components, you know
Hmm.
which DOM you're interacting with, or that is
Uh,
unclear.
I am
But
fairly new, so I won't be knowing that. Yeah,
okay, okay, got it. Oh, no problem. Like we can have a one-to-one session as well to
sure.
go deeper dive on that, because in my normal video, whatever I would record, like that would be code again, like the same scenario, whatever you are encountering, the same would happen. Like I would be able to show you like how this debugging happens in action in my org. But if suppose you're not able to replicate it, then again it would not be worth it.
Right, that's correct. All right, thanks. So I'll connect with you. I mean, one on one.
Yeah, sure, sure.
Thanks.
Yeah, not a problem. Next is your insert versus database.insert. See, insert is like, it would be if anything is, any error is there and none of them would be inserted. But with database.insert, you have option, like whether you want to insert the record or not. Okay. And there are some DML options as well, that are available. Like which if you want, like let me just do it once. Like I can open the database.insert actual method. So there should be 1 minute. A minute. See, like how we have database.update. I can let me just open the official debug log 1 minute. Means official method. So in this, like there are some advanced level settings if you want to do. Then also database.insert actually helps you pass that parameter. Or here this way also you can do. See, there are multiple options, but like the main difference is around your partial success and all. Next is around your stateful and stateless. Uh, stateful means like whatever is happening, each execute method, whatever is happening in that I'm able to recollect. Like suppose in the second time the execute method was called, at that time I would have the information of whatever happened in the first execution. So this is basically kind of whenever you want to have a requirement, like after executing the entire all the batch, after executing the batch, send a count of how many transactions were successful or how many were failed. If you want to report it something like that, then always go with that stateful. And how do you do that? Using database.stateful interface. Okay. Any questions on this?
No, no, okay.
Okay. The next one, let's move on to this. Now around database.batchable. See, database.batchable is an interface. So basically, the problem with our regular code is like it's not bulkified. Means suppose there's a large data volume that you want to process. Like suppose you have like at the end of the day, you would want like all the orders that are created today should be sent to your ERP system. So the records would be more, and you have the limit like you can query only 50,000 records. And you might argue like there's an option like you can query 1 lakh records as well if you use @read only. But we are saying it 50,000 only just because we are assume like we might need to do some DMLs as well. So we are considering 50,000 records. So if you want to do processing more than that, or the operation takes too much time, then go with batch apex. Batch apex, batchable, both are the same thing. So you have like system.execute batch method through which you call the batch classes. The second parameter tells you like what will be the batch size or the chunk size also it is called sometimes. Okay. And in that as well, there are three methods: start, execute, finish. Start method is of two types. One is your iterator return type, and second is your database.query locator. Iterator you use when you want to do something around your file processing or some iteration related things if you want to do. Oh, and the data size is less than 50,000 records. So that time you will want to proceed with the iterator return type. If you want to query more data, then obviously we'll go with database.query locator return type of the start method. That signature you will use. Okay. What I'm saying is making sense, or is it going too much complex? Please acknowledge if suppose, or you can raise your hands if you're feeling shy or whatever it is. But at least I should get the clarity like what I am saying is making sense. Okay.
No, no, it makes sense, Ankit. Yes,
Okay.
it does.
Okay. Then I'm going forward with this. Now the next one is around interfaces. Like when do we use interface and example? Like see interface like it's your old OOPS concept only. Like it is like it will generally it would not have a method definition. It would give you a prototype or sometimes it's called signature as well. It is a kind of contract. Like if I say like I have to make a payment, obviously while making the payment you will have a person who is paying the money, another one is receiving the money. So that is a kind of contract you're defining. So, and why do we use it? Obviously, to do loose coupling, like suppose taking example of payment. Okay, some people would do the payment through credit card. Someone will do the payment through UPI. Someone would do the payment through crypto. But basic signature is the means basic concept is simple. One person is paying for the money, and other one is receiving the money. Correct. So because of which there's a flexibility, like if suppose any new payment gateway is introduced, like suppose like talking about this tokens, it's easy to adopt because the base line is therein already. Like what is the basic structure that would be therein? So each version or each like taken to cars, like each car would have like four tires, right? So now it's up to the manufacturer. The manufacturer can have their own version. Like with the four tires, he can have a different kind of design. He can configure the other parts, like he can make the engine more powerful. So everything is possible, but it means you would have the ability to do the customization on top of your base contract. And most probably, like you would have used interfaces multiple places, but you might not have looked at the things the way, in this way. Like, triggers everywhere, whenever you're implementing a trigger, there's obviously like a iTrigger handler, which you're implementing, which has your basic signatures. And the advantage for that is like everywhere you will see like the name before insert is only there. It's not like where it is like uh, before insertion or before saving, something like that. Everywhere the same definition is therein. Because of which there is a standardization. Like yes, it will be the this method name only. It won't be different. And another advantage of using interfaces, like some of the interfaces actually add special behavior. Notice this special behavior. Like talking about your market interface, like your database.stateful. Do you have any method in database.stateful or not? This is an open forum. Answer it. Let's see like how many of you are awake. While you implement database.stateful, do you override any method? You can reply in the chat as well. No. But what advantage you get? You are able to get whatever was your maintain the state. Like you are able to make that counter of how many records of success means were successful. So this is kind of special behavior that you're able to add. Why? Because you're using interface. So these are the different benefits of using interface. Now this is actually a senior developer kind of a question, but I found like this type of question very few people have actually answered it. So I thought like I will explain like how it needs to be actually explained. Like how do you handle critical bugs? So this is more kind of a process related things, like what are the processes like you are aware of. See, in any company, like whenever any project which we implement, the first whenever we get any critical bugs, first thing is we triage. Like the customer might say like it's a critical bug, but you need to validate it. Like what was the requirement? Is it fulfilling or is it aligned with your existing story? So you will have to first triage it, check like and for which set of users are getting impacted, and is it due to bad data or anything like that. If you're able to get it in first go, that is good. And then you would want to do like impact analysis, like suppose like because of this wherever it can impact, like suppose a simple example, like I have suppose used a variable in I am creating an account, and in that whatever variable I'm assigning in, it might happen like for some scenarios like I'm able to get inserting the record with like first name custom field. Now in some scenarios it is getting populated, so the it is working fine, but in some scenario it is coming empty. So in such scenario what do I do? I actually fix it. So I will have to tell them like while in your code you will have to add this condition, like if that is not null, then only let that flow that node get executed. So I will have to tell them like what are the places the impact can be felt, or any impact it could happen. Like I will have to specify like this object, this scenario, it might get affected. And third thing is RCA. RCA is very important as a part of your process, because you should know like what was the things that went wrong, and sometimes your project manager or architect would push you hard for that, because it is like the customers are eager to know like what is the causing the problem, and because of which like they would sometimes it might happen like as a result of your RCA there might be a process change as well. Like suppose while you are doing the testing in your dev environment, it has figured out like the issue came in because of some permission. So what they would do, they would tell you like in your dev environment, like you will have to create a actual test user with the same as we have in QA, and you have to test with that. So there's various implications of your RCA. And after the RCA is done, like you start the fixing, like temporary fix, then the permanent fix. You deploy the code and then you see how does it go. Okay. Is it clear? This is important actually from the program. Like we normally as developers, we don't focus like this kind of question can also be asked. But sometimes at senior level, these process related things also come up. And it might happen like this might not come in the L1 round, but in the L2 round, there's a fair possibility like these questions might come up. Any question on this? Can someone acknowledge, please? Or shall I move forward?
We can go ahead, Ankit. Not
Okay.
on the next one.
You can
Yeah. Next is your synchronous asynchronous apex. It's very simple. See, in while you will be implementing any project or any functionality, most of the scenarios like you might it's our human tendency, like we kind of want to go in synchronous mode only. Like it would be like it should be synchronous user, like the things would be smooth. Do it immediately only, no? Why you want to create the asynchronous mode? That is a kind of our tendency, but we don't know. Like, see, as good architects or technical leads, the preference would be like if you can make it asynchronous, that is actually better because it might happen like that operation might take much more time. And if you're doing any heavy lifting, it might happen that the operation is not completed and you might encounter errors. So always it's preferred like you go with asynchronous Apex. So first of all, the user experience is improved because the user is not waiting like whether that operation is completed, then only he would be able to do the things, right? So like execution while wise, synchronous runs immediately, asynchronous in the background. Synchronous mode, the user is waiting. In asynchronous, it's not. Synchronous mode only 10 seconds is the time that your code has. If it is able to get the response, it's well and good. Otherwise, you will get there a CPU time limit exception. Now, our regular controllers, everything is your synchronous. If you do anything like batch, process, queueable, scheduled apex, and all of it, it's all asynchronous. Simple update, always we can go with synchronous. If you're doing any heavy lifting, go with asynchronous mode. It's mentioned specifically asynchronous Apex. Otherwise, if it was just asynchronous mode, then yes, even your asynchronous node would also come in, schedule flow would also come in, but we are talking about only Apex here. So that is the reason, like I have not mentioned that. And there's a separate video which I've recorded going into much more granular details around this asynchronous Apex. So this is the exact video for that. So you can watch that, like where we have talked about all the batch, Apex, Queueable, everything. Okay. The next thing is around name credentials. Name credential, obviously we all know like it's using for storing credentials, but what is the catch? Like, see, the catch is like name credentials only store your call endpoint, like which is the endpoint to be hit. But and your actual credentials actually reside in your external credentials. So, and this external credential has to be linked to your name credential. And in your code, while you create the name credential, you specify like whether the person would be able to use it in your Apex or not, or whether it would be only through the setup. So you have these kind of security mechanisms in place. So your name credential is very useful in such regards. And yeah, other people might say like, why can't we go with your normal custom setting or custom metadata, something like that? The key reason is like, while if I'm using name credentials, I don't need to know what are the credentials. But in other scenarios, like when I use the custom setting or anything, I'm able to directly get the access. Just to use this thing, I'm able to see the data directly. But name credentials security is more. Next is on flex queue. Again, a very important question. Like how many time, like how many batch means how many batches can be done together. So you'll have to say like 100 batches can be done, but all will be in holding stage only, and only one would be active at a time. And internally, it's handled by flex queue, which is taking care like which one to prioritize. So internally, it maintains this different status value like holding, queued, preparing, processed, and all of it. So now, what happens is like you have the option like might be yeah in your using in the code using flex queue, there are some methods move after job or move to job or move to end, something like that. So you can change the order in which Salesforce is picking the records, and you can have your own priority that this should be the sequence you should be utilizing. while running the batch classes. Okay, it is a bit complex, I understand it. Auth provider. Auth provider, obviously, like, yeah. Auth provider is like, suppose by default, like Salesforce is, you can add your own auth provider, and this is that is used for your SSO. That is a different thing. Name credentials, like you define in your name credential, like per name principal, like when then you define like your client ID, client secret, and all of it. Auth provider is like you are going into other mode, like while doing like suppose you have to do an SSO with suppose Google, then you create that auth provider. Suppose like I'm doing it with like making Salesforce as the auth provider. So there are separate set of steps involved in that, and in the interest of time, we'll have to cover that separately. Sorry, like we have the time constraint, so we'll cover it maybe in next session. Now the next thing is around your callouts. Can we do it in flow? Yes, we can. In asynchronous path, in after flows, yes, there's a possibility. Simple one, it's like PD1 question, test dot start test and stop test. Start test is like your resets the governor limit. Stop test forces asynchronous operation to become synchronous, so that you get the desired output, like you are able to test the functionality correctly. Like after your test dot stop test, only you actually apply the assertions. Next is your mixed TML. Mixed TML means setup, non-setup in the same transaction. Now, in test class, how do you handle it? Either you create separate methods, like, or other option is like you use system.run as. System.run as creates a new context entirely, so the things work out. Another common question is around test SeeAllData. Like we always say, like SeeAllData should be false, but then why it was given the option of making it true? So the actual reason is like by default it should be false only. Agree. Why? Because like you have the data, like Salesforce provided us enough methods to mimic most of the to create the test data of that object. Like your account, if you want to mock everything, if accessibility is therein. But for few of the scenarios, like your reports dashboard, Salesforce has not given us that ability. And suppose you have to test those things, then you can't do it. So for that, like Salesforce given us the option, like you can keep it as true as well. So it should be used in very limited scenarios when you have the requirement of testing around Connect API, chatter, or reports and dashboard only. Okay. Can someone acknowledge like what I'm saying in is making sense? Okay.
Yeah, okay.
Next is wrapper. Wrapper is like, see, wrapper is like a, how you have the chocolate wrapper. Okay. The main chocolate is therein, but on top of it, you're adding a wrapper to make it like so that the packaging is they are able to do. So here, like what it does is like, suppose you have the requirement, like suppose you're getting the attribute from your database, like say, uh, uh, you get a status value of contact, like it is being active or inactive. Okay. But what you want is like based on your contact, like while you're showing this record, you would want to also show like your accounts uh, some field like account name, for example. Not account name, but suppose what are the different number of cases like they are associated on with this contact, and you already have the reach the limit. So to just show it on the UI at the database level, you don't want it. So you can just create an attribute there and populate it in your wrapper. So without introducing anything in your actual object, you are able to add additional attributes and show it. Okay, very useful in most of the implementations. I have seen not a single project like where we have not utilized wrapper. It makes it the things very much simpler. Okay. Next one is like we already covered this, like reordering of flex queue. Yes, means by of Apex queue. Yes, we can use the flex queue methods like move after, move before, and others. Can we call flows from trigger? Yes, we can do that. The signature is like it expects map of string comma object. So this is a kind of a flow, auto launch flow that you have like calculate discounts. So you can create this map and pass it as a parameter and then call the start method. It works. And obviously in the flow, you can call the Apex code. You know that like via invocable methods. Very straightforward. But this part in Apex, calling it via Apex is something like very few people actually know about it. Okay. Now, like there's like a lot of confusion, like from batch class, what can be called from Queueable, what can be called from future method, what can be called. See, from batch classes, if you say you can't call a future method. But you can in your finish method, you can use enqueue, system.enqueue. Use that. From your Queueable, obviously you can call the future methods. That is the common use case. And you can also call your batch class from there. Queueable. You can do the chaining. And from future methods, what you can do is like you cannot call future method from your batch class, obviously. You basically use future methods for three scenarios. First, you want to do a call out from trigger. Second scenario is like you want to avoid mixed TML. Third scenario is like you want to make a scenario asynchronous so that the user experience is improved. Those are the only three use cases like where you go with future methods. Queueable kinds of avoids it. You're able, it does, yeah. How many times Queueable can call future method? I think only once because there's a limit like it gives you error like after the second one. Not 100% sure on this, but there are some limitations around that. I was not able to actually check it, so I have to refer to various blogs around it. And then the last, like what I thought is like I posted it in your agent force through help.salesforce. So this is the response I received. So that's what I used. Okay. The next one is like trigger context and trigger events. So trigger context variables are very many available like trigger.new, trigger.old, trigger.is executing, trigger.operation type. Trigger events we all know before insert, before update, before insert, before update, after delete, after undelete. So now these features which I have mentioned on like just Apex, it can happen like in the interview they might ask you like in the recent updates from Salesforce, what are the new things that have come up? So you should have an answer. Like if for Apex, like I recollect like switch statement was introduced and your safe null operator, those are the things important enhancements. Right now also they made some things in the Connect API but I was not able to connect to it. So these are the ones like which I mentioned. So the next thing is around like platform events. Like when do you use, like suppose I have to do the integration real time. So event driven, like it should be like suppose I'm creating an order, whether that order is created within Salesforce or from Shopify or from other platform. If the process is the same, like use platform events and then on the platform events, write that automation that how it needs to be proceeded or any integration that you have to do so that it's more future proof. Okay. Now, next one is like your custom metadata and custom setting. Both use cases are entirely different. No need of